Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm Dr. Marmuthu, your host. So, what on earth does an old Japanese loom from the early 20th century have to do with that new skyscraper going up downtown? Well, a lot more than you might think. Today, we're diving deep into the origins of lean, a truly revolutionary philosophy that started in a textile mill, was perfected in a car factory, and is now completely changing the way we build our world. By the end of this, you'll really get the core ideas that drive this powerful system and see how they made the incredible leap from manufacturing cars to constructing buildings. This isn't just a business strategy. It's really the story of an idea's journey. And it begins, believe it or not with cars, but with textiles. From a simple loom to a game-changing automobile, and finally to the modern construction site. It's a fantastic example of how one brilliant solution to a local problem can grow and evolve to literally change the world. So, let's start right at the beginning. To really understand lean, we have to go back in time, way before Toyota was even building cars. The story kicks off with a simple but massive problem. See, in the early 1900s, global manufacturing meant one thing: Ford. But the situation in Japan was totally different. Just copying the American model, that wasn't an option. And this challenge, this constraint, is what forced a moment of true, brilliant innovation. This slide just lays out the core conflict perfectly. Over in America, you had Henry Ford, who had mastered mass production. The goal was simple: churn out a massive number of one single product, the Model T. This meant huge, expensive machines running in enormous batches. But in post-war Japan, the market was small, money was tight, and customers wanted different types of cars. Toyota just couldn't afford Ford's system. They desperately needed a way to produce a wide variety of vehicles in small batches without being crushed by the cost of huge inventories. They had to be efficient in a way the world had literally never seen before. So the first seed of this new way of thinking actually came from the company's founder, Sakichi Toyoda, who was an inventor in the textile industry. He created an automatic loom with a simple but revolutionary feature. It would stop itself instantly if a single thread broke. He called this Jidoka, or automation with a human touch. Now just think about the impact of that for a second. Instead of a worker finding hundreds of meters of defective cloth at the end of a run, the machine itself flagged the problem the very moment it happened. This idea, embedding quality right into the process and stopping to fix problems at the source, became the first foundational pillar of the whole Toyota system. The second pillar was developed by Sakichi's son, Kiichiro Toyoda, and it was his direct answer to the mass production problem. He called it just-in-time, or JIT. The concept is so beautifully simple. You make only what the next step in the process needs, exactly when it needs it. This meant no more giant, expensive warehouses overflowing with parts that might just sit there for weeks. Instead of a push system, where you make a ton of stuff and just hope it sells, this created a pull system, where actual customer orders pull the necessary parts through the factory. It was a radical idea, all designed for ultimate flexibility and efficiency. Okay, so in the decades after World War II, these two big ideas, Jidoka and just-in-time, weren't just practiced. They were woven together into a complete philosophy. This was the birth of the Toyota Production System, or TPS, a totally groundbreaking new way to think about work, value, and most importantly, waste. Now, the main architect of this system was a brilliant engineer named Taiichi Ohno, and this quote, it just perfectly captures his obsession. For Ohno, the goal wasn't just to make cars. It was to shrink the timeline from the customer's order to the moment the cash was collected. And how did he do that? By relentlessly, obsessively, finding and destroying any activity that didn't add value for the customer. He called these non-value-added activities waste. This is the classic way to visualize how it all fits together, the TPS house. The roof? That's your ultimate goals. Highest quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time. It's held up by our two pillars, just-in-time and Jidoka. But look at the foundation. That's what makes it all stable. You've got Heijunka, which is all about leveling out the production schedule to avoid crazy ups and downs. You have standardized work, making sure everyone does a task the same best-known way. And Kaizen, the mindset of continuous small improvements. And right there, at the very heart of it all, people and teamwork. The whole system is built on the idea that it's not about the machines, it's about empowering your people to make the process better, every single day. To get rid of waste, Taiichi Ohno first had to define it. In Japanese, it's called muda, and it's way more than just tossing out scrap material. He identified 7 specific types. Overproduction, making stuff before it's needed, he called that the worst of all because it leads to all the others. Then there's waiting, a worker standing by for a part to arrive.
Unnecessary transport, moving materials all over the factory, over-processing, like polishing a surface the customer will never even see, excess inventory, unnecessary movement, and of course, defects. The goal of the entire system is to make these wastes impossible to ignore so you can hunt them down and eliminate them.
Now, for decades, this incredibly powerful system was Toyota's secret weapon, developed and perfected in Japan. But then, in the 1980s, the world started to notice something. Japanese automakers were producing higher quality cars, faster, and cheaper. And that made Western researchers ask a really simple question. How in the world are they doing it? And as this timeline shows, after decades of quietly being perfected inside Toyota, the world finally caught on. In the 80s, researchers at MIT kicked off a major 5-year study to figure out why Japanese car companies were so far ahead. That research all led to a landmark book in 1990 called The Machine That Changed the World, which basically blew the doors open and explained the Toyota system to a global audience for the very first time. And it was right there, in that book, that the MIT researchers gave the Toyota production system a new, universally understandable name: Lean. Why lean? Well, they called it that because it used less of everything compared to mass production. Less human effort, less factory space, less investment in tools, less inventory, and less time to develop a new product. It was just the perfect word to capture the essence of this hyper-efficient philosophy. So the story could have ended there, right? Lean revolutionizes manufacturing. The end. But a few really forward-thinking people started to wonder, could these principles of flow, value, and waste elimination be applied to a completely different, much more chaotic industry? Could they be applied to construction? The crucial connection was made in 1992 by a Finnish scholar named Lauri Koskela. In a really important paper, he argued that traditional construction management was fundamentally flawed. He said, we focus only on making individual tasks faster. But Koskela pointed out that completely ignores the massive amounts of waste, the waiting, the rework, the unnecessary transport that happens between all those tasks. He argued that construction desperately needed to adopt this new production philosophy that was pioneered by Toyota. And this comparison just gets right to the heart of Koskela's big idea. On the left, you've got traditional construction. It's all about making each separate task, pouring the concrete, installing the windows, as fast as possible. But lean construction, on the right, sees the project completely differently. It sees one single interconnected flow from the very start to the finish. The goal isn't just to optimize the tasks, but to optimize the entire system and get rid of the waste that happens in the empty spaces between them. And just like that, lean construction was born. It applies the exact same principles from the factory floor to the job site. It starts by asking the most important question: what does the customer truly value? Then it designs the entire project as one production system, aimed at delivering that value with zero waste. It's a massive shift from just managing contracts and schedules to actually managing workflow in value. And that brings our whole journey full circle, from a single thread in a loom, to a system that builds millions of cars, to a philosophy that now builds our cities. We've seen how the core ideas of Jidoka and just-in-time grew into a complete production system that didn't just change manufacturing, but then made the incredible leap to fundamentally change how we build the entire world around us. We've seen how Toyota identified waste in its factories, and how pioneers like Koskela identified it on construction sites. This leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty provocative question. Think about your own work, your own processes, your projects, whether you're in an office or out on a site. If you look through this lens of lean thinking, what non-value-adding activities, what waiting, what rework, what unnecessary steps can you spot and eliminate? The journey of this idea is always evolving, but I truly hope this explainer gave you a clear look at its powerful origins. Thanks for joining me on Bodhi Unified Flow.